It's now 8:12. Although divorce filings are at their lowest rate during the last 3 months of the year, the strain of custody battles are not seasonal. And the added stress of the holidays can make a strained co-parenting relationship even more difficult, especially if you need to decide where and how children spend the holidays. Here was some advice for families as First Coast family law expert Lawrence Datz. Thank you so much, sir, for coming in this morning. You know, coming from a divorced family myself, I can attest to everything we're going to talk about. Everything.
I bet.
From your standpoint, though, from a legal standpoint, what are some of the issues that you see?
Well, typically there are a number of things, like a handful of things that happen at the holidays. One would be if you had separated families that don't have a schedule in place or an agreement to share the holidays. Right. A second would be if they have a court-ordered schedule, but they disagree about how to interpret the schedule. You know, there are a number of incantations from that. You know, people think they have an agreement about what they're going to do to deviate, and then the other person says, no, well, I never agreed to that.
You know, as you're talking, I'm trying to think back to our situation. I know my parents had joint custody. I believe my dad's watching from New York, I think, right now, and he's probably going to text me, no, this is what we had. But I do recall, you know, it was always a battle. Who gets who on Thanksgiving? Do we go to mom's house, or do we go to dad's house for Christmas? And I'm sure that battle still continues today in a lot of households. What are some good strategies at trying to figure out where children should spend these big holidays?
Well, you got one possibility would be just to invite the other parent over.
Oh,
but
that is an idea.
That's fairly rare.
Right? Different house, yeah, different rules for different houses.
They have, you know, parents have to get along well enough to do that. And I would also say, the key to all this is that the parents should be mindful of the children.
Yes.
Because the children didn't ask to be put in this position. And if the parents consider, you know, the idea that it's just stressful for the children to have their parents in conflict over it all.
You know, what's really interesting is that I always say that my brother and I are extremely fortunate, because not everyone is fortunate coming from divorced families. There's always a loss at times with some folks. I can say that my parents divorced one another. They never divorced Josh and I, my brother and I. And that is what you just said, key to situations like this and navigating these types of situations.
Absolutely. You know, the parents shouldn't forget that it's their childhood should be the focus of what's going on. And a lot of times what happens is that parents are worried about asserting their own rights, and they forget about their child who's caught in the middle of it all.
Absolutely. And they're the ones that will ultimately suffer from their parents' actions. What are some tips you can offer parents who perhaps might be going through divorces on how to navigate tough questions when talking to their children, or even one another, that respect back and forth between parents?
Well, communication is probably the key to most of it. Right. And, you know, you also have, like I said, keeping the focus on the child. You know, one parent shouldn't make plans without consulting the other parent, unless, you know, there's a clear understanding of where the child is going to be. They shouldn't have the child be the messenger or choose where they're going. And if, you know, they're really at odds and they can't seem to come to an agreement, there are a couple of other possibilities. One would be something like family counseling or something else called parenting coordination. And a last resort is contact your lawyer. You may end up having to go to court. And if you do that, you need to make sure that the lawyer has enough time to draft a motion and schedule a hearing and things like that.
And we should also mention, too, if it's at the point in the relationship between the two parents that things are so hostile, it's okay to have the lawyers mediate and communicate with one another, if especially if it means the children will benefit the most.
Yes.
To have those dialogues versus having those dialogues in person.
Sometimes.
If it results to that.
Yes, you're right. Sometimes parents just have such difficulty communicating with each other without conflict that it's, you know, they need sort of a go-between or an intermediary to reduce the conflict.
Even adults need.
Right.
referees, right, in
Right.
life? Well, thank you so much for coming in. I enjoyed speaking with you.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thank you.